Chapter 26. Before the 13th hour. As Pris opens the door, she watches as the last shuttle bus turns toward the exit. The buildings of the power plant lie empty in the morning sun, but in the distance a long line of vehicles wait to pass a security barrier. Seren pushes Pris aside and hobbles toward the landing pad. Kneeling behind a support pillar, she surveys the gate to the power plant and motions the others to follow. Her rifle aimed at the open service door. She rushes forward.
Seren, wait!
Pris calls out as she runs toward the gate. Arya, Evren, and Terran follow as fast as they can, struggling under the unusual weight of their gear. Seren stops at the half-open service door, kneeling to peer inside. After a moment, she gets back up, pushes the door wide open, and rushes in.
God damn it, Len!
Pris growls as she follows Seren blindly into the mountain. The others follow, breathing heavily after their sprint. Their breathing gets even heavier as they enter the tunnel. The humid and hot atmosphere is a shock after the cold morning air outside. Seren stands near the door, removing her body armor.
It's hot down here,
She says.
Get rid of your clothes.
They quickly follow Seren's advice and remove their warm sweaters and shirts, donning the armor over their naked arms and shoulders. Pris grabs Seren's shoulder and looks into her eyes.
We work as a team, okay? Better to have 5 rifles than 1.
Seren frowns impatiently, but then nods.
Agreed.
With Pris and Seren taking the lead, the group makes its way down into the mountain, hugging the wall, weapons at the ready. Yellow warning lights still rotate in the steam-laden air as they turn the corner and behold the huge cave with the core of the power plant in the distance. Pris gazes up to the ceiling of the cave uneasily, feeling edgy about the masses of rock hovering over her. Taking cover wherever possible, Seren works her way toward the massive dome to the left. The noise of generators and the hiss of pressurized water gets louder as they approach a barrier on the road. Seren motions her friends to stop and take cover as she spots the figure of a crow leaning against the barrier with his back toward them. Pris points at her chest and then at the agent. Taking care to stay low, she uses every shadow available to work her way toward the crow. Silently rising behind him, amid the generator noises, she snaps her arm around his neck and pulls him over the barrier. Gasping for air, the crow tries to loosen Pris's arm vise, still dragging him backward. Pris keeps up the pressure with her bulging chest muscle. Slowly, the resistance of the agent weakens until he lies unconscious on the ground.
Take that.
Arya snarls at the motionless crow and ties his hands and feet with a carbon chain. Surprised by Arya's aggressive demeanor, Seren mocks her.
You didn't take him.
Arya just rolls her eyes and looks ahead. Evren also screens the area ahead and points to the right.
I remember the structure with the turbine section.
She calls out against the noise.
There should be an entrance to a tunnel and caves to the right.
As they run down the road, the deafening noise of the gigantic turbines pierces their ears. To the right, the cave wall opens up into a smaller adjunct cave. The scream of the turbines subsides as they approach a maintenance area. Forklifts are parked between steel pipes and barrels. Half-finished generator blocks wait for repair on huge workbenches. The air smells like molded towels and rancid grease. Metal chains hang from the ceiling, gently swaying in the hot air. Seren crouches behind a workbench and looks around the corner. Rows of shelves extend to the cave walls. A door with a warning sign is set into the bedrock.
Seren, no!
Pris warns her as Seren leaves her cover. Seren quickly crouches toward the next cover, aiming her rifle at the door. 2 shots ring out and Seren instantly returns fire with a blind rifle burst. A bullet punches into her armor, ripping her off her feet. Her back hits the floor hard. Gasping for air, Seren instinctively rolls into cover behind a barrel.
You'll never make it past me!
A loud voice echoes through the shelves. Pris motions Seren to stay put and shouts at the invisible shooter.
Oh yeah? We got 5 rifles. You got 1. Give up now. Your buddy is already hogtied at the barrier. I promise, we won't kill you.
Pris narrows her eyes and shakes her head skeptically at her intimidation attempt. The shooter remains silent for a moment. But then he yells,
But I promise I'll kill you. So come and get it.
A rain of bullets hit the shelves, barrel and workbench, flying harmlessly past Pris.
I hate senseless killings, but we have no time.
Pris sighs and reaches for 2 small explosive grenades. Peering around the corner, she sees Siren pinned behind the barrel with a nonchalant expression of boredom on her face, waiting for the ranting Crow agent to calm down. Pris shows Siren the grenades with raised eyebrows, asking her permission. Siren gives her a thumbs up and grabs her rifle to lay suppressive fire for Pris's throw. Without leaving the cover of the barrel, Siren sends random shots toward the door and into the shelves, spotting Pris's grenades fly overhead. She lets out another burst and crawls away from the barrel while Pris takes over, spraying the walls of the cave, sending rock splitters flying through the air. Siren rolls away as two short explosions rock the shelves. Dust clouds surge through the cave as a row of shelves collapses. A rain of screws, cables, and small spare parts falls into the dust. Coughing and wheezing, Siren joins the others, covered with fine white dust.
Maybe not such a good idea after all.
She gasps and spits on the ground. Looking at the others, she notices that she is the only one covered in dust. Pris shrugs apologetically, then pats Siren's dusty shoulder.
Good job.
Still careful, Pris raises her rifle and advances through the dust. She finds the remains of the agent buried under a layer of debris and dust next to the busted door. Beyond the door, yellow floodlights illuminate a downward tunnel. Again, Siren takes the lead and peers into the tunnel, her rifle seeking new targets. Taryn rushes past Pris and grabs Siren by her collar.
Siren, wait.
She says.
There's an explosive charge down there.
Taryn warns in a hushed voice. Turning to Pris, she adds,
No more grenades. No more spray and pray. Let's play this smart.
The dim yellow light leads them further down the tunnel. Heat seeps out of natural fissures in the bedrock. The stone is hot to the touch. A dry wind rustles along the tunnel and carries the distant creaking of rock grating against rock. Further down, the tunnel widens into a large natural cave. As they approach the opening of the cave, sand trickles off the jagged ceiling.
Yeah, definitely no grenade throwing down here.
Pris whispers as she nervously scans the cave roof. In the far corner, dim light illuminates the opening to another smaller cave. Suddenly, gunfire erupts ahead of them. They hear automatic rifle fire and muffled grenade explosions coming through the cave opening. But something is wrong. The shots sound hollow and strangely flat. Muffled words of a speech ring out amid the gunfire noise. Thrown off course, Siren frowns at the audio illusions and inches toward the opening. A loud voice sounds over the gunfire.
Stop this madness.
Arya would have recognized that voice anywhere. This raspy voice, full of discontent, had once told her face to face that she was not worthy to be around his son. Hatred fills Arya's thoughts, and she wishes Raylan's father would be here right now. Siren crouches at a large boulder at the entrance to the cave with Taryn behind her, crawling toward the other side of the entrance. Pris motions Arya and Evren to stay back. In the cave, Raylan stands motionless with crossed arms, grimly staring at something beyond their sight. Next to him rests a large box with a timer on top. 9:34, 33, 32. Taryn instinctively puts a hand on Siren's shoulder. She knows Siren wants nothing more than to rush in and rescue their triple partner. Amidst the audio mayhem of gunfire, explosions, and screams, Raylan's father plays his part in this charade and begs his son to return to him. Suddenly, Cyphren steps into view from behind a corner of the cave. She draws her weapon and readies a gas cartridge.
Release the gas. Kill my son.
Winslow's words echo through the cave as Cyphren drops the active cartridge. The gunfire sounds stop, and only the hiss of the releasing gas fills the cave. Thick white smoke swells up around Cyphren's feet as she bares her teeth for a malicious grin. Silently mimicking the words with her lips, she aims her gun at his body.
Goodbye. No!
Siren springs out of her cover and races toward Raylan. Perplexed, Cyphren lowers her gun, her arm swirling through the smoke. Without a thought, she then aims at Siren. Through the quickly spreading smoke, she spots Taryn charging into the cave. A second target. At the same time, Pris tries to get an aim on Cyphren, but Taryn is right in the line of fire. Cursing her luck, she scrambles toward the smoke that billows out of the cave entrance, trying to recall the exact position of Raylan and the bomb to the left. A loud gunshot rings through the cave. Siren's small body spins around and falls to the ground. Her head hits the bedrock hard. Taryn tries to cover Siren's body as another gunshot sends her flying backward. Arya screams in horror as she watches her friends' lifeless bodies under the wafting smoke.
Fuck this!
Pris growls, setting her rifle to full automatic. Firing blindly into the cave, she walks past Siren and Taryn and into the smoke. Arya senses an opportunity and jumps up, dragging Evren with her. Arya grabs Siren's body armor and pulls her lifeless body away from the cave entrance. Shocked into reality, Evren follows with Taryn's body. Walking into the cave, Pris is still barraging the smoke-filled air with automatic fire. Inside, she turns to the right and crouches, peppering the cave walls with projectiles. The thick smoke tastes dry and metallic in her mouth. Finally, the rifle's charge runs out, and Pris robs toward Raylan's approximate position, silently changing her battery clip. The smoke covers the cave like a thick fog. Pris aims her rifle into the fog, but she cannot even see the muzzle of her own gun. Gazing into Taryn's wide-open eyes, Arya frantically opens the first aid case. Taryn desperately tries to breathe as blood seeps down her body armor. Evren releases the armor plates and blood gushes out under Taryn's arm. She arches in pain, still trying to breathe. Clasping Evren's arm, she turns her head towards Siren's body. Siren lies on the ground next to her, her closed eyes giving her a peaceful expression.
She'll be fine.
Evren lies and holds Taryn's head. Her face grows pale under her wheezing breath. Arya rips open a vial with Biobot liquid and wipes away the blood around the entry wound. With one swoop, she pours all of the viscous liquid over the wound, pressing a bandage against it. Taryn gasps in pain, her chest heaving frantically.
Hold this.
Arya orders Evren and opens another vial. Her eyes dart over to Siren's lifeless body and tears well up in her eyes. Keeping herself focused, she pushes away Evren's hand and removes the bandage. Bright red blisters form around the wounded tissue, and dark clots of blood build up around the entry wound. Arya gently dabs the blood clots off the wound and applies another vial of Biobots. Again, Taryn's body arches in pain, and she instinctively tries to put her hand to her wound. Evren stops her and holds Taryn's hand firmly down to the ground.
It's gonna be okay.
She whispers.
It's gonna be okay.
Taryn's wheezing breath is the only sound that reverberates into the smoke-filled cave. The hiss of the gas cartridge subsides. Pris crouches silently and listens intently for any sound, but only distant rumbles of the mountain echo in the cave. Silently, she moves toward Raylan and the bomb.
No one is so insane to fire at a bomb, right?
A simple plan, if the premise is correct.
She's not that crazy, is she?
Behind her, Pris hears strained breathing.
Ray.
She whispers, barely audible. The breathing pauses, then intensifies. A weak moan is heard, like someone struggling. Pris turns around and makes out the silhouette of a figure next to a large box. The red light of the timer pierces through the smoke. 5:15. 14. 13. A shot rings out and the projectile whirs past Raylan's shoulder. Pris failed to spot the muzzle flash.
She's that crazy.
Pris is shocked. The next shot could hit Raylan or her, or the bomb. Dense smoke clouds swirl in the hot air, floating slowly toward the ceiling. Quietly touching her body armor for something to throw, she finds a set of electronic handcuffs. She releases the magnetic clip and throws the handcuffs deep into the cave, immediately pointing her rifle into the fog. She waits for a muzzle flash. Nothing happens. Slowly, the fog diffuses and the light beams of the floodlight and TV screen pierce the smoke. From the corner of her eye, she spots a shadow crossing the TV to her right. Instinctively, she lets out a barrage of shots before rolling away from Raylan. 2 shots hit the ground where she had just been. The fog starts to clear and Pris can see the outline of massive, jagged rocks close to her. Cowering at a large boulder, she seeks to keep her back protected. Her gun aims into the fog, sweeping from side to side. Taryn winces in pain as Arya applies a firm self-sealing bandage over the wound. Taryn's heavy breathing slows into a steady rhythm, but her pale skin seems almost translucent. Evren rests Taryn's head on her body armor and worriedly touches her arm, shocked by the coldness of the skin. She helplessly caresses Taryn's arm.
She's so cold.
Evren whispers, glancing at Evren. Arya senses that her friend will succumb to her grief. If she is left without purpose,
Grab the gold foil out of the case and wrap it around her.
She orders Everin into action. Looking at Siren's body, she hesitates to touch her, afraid to confirm what she already knows. A shot rings out in the cave and both Arya and Everin cower instinctively. Looking into the cave, Arya expects ATC agents to march out of the thick smoke any second now. With a resigned sigh, she gently turns Siren's body on her back. Siren's blonde curls frame her innocent sleeping face. Her slightly parted lips give her a childlike appearance. A streak of dirt covers her forehead. Arya hesitates to wipe the dirt away, as if not to disturb her eternal rest. Deep splintered indentations in her armor show where projectiles had hit Siren's shoulder pads. Arya frowns and checks Siren's arms and legs. Rifle fire and gunshots echo out of the cave again. Everin stops wrapping Taryn's body with foil and gazes into the cave. White smoke still billows out of the cave and diffuses toward the ceiling.
No, don't. Ray, wait.
The quiet mumbling snaps Arya's gaze away from the cave entrance. Perplexed, she stares into Siren's face, who moves her head from side to side with closed eyes.
She's alive!
Arya exclaims, breaking into tears. She gently wipes away the dirt off Siren's forehead and holds down Siren's flailing arms.
It's all good, Siren.
She soothes her under tears.
It's all good.
Nervously, she gazes into the cave. The smoke seems to turn thinner. Pris listens intently to any sign of movement. She hears Arya's cry.
She's alive!
And she grips her rifle tightly, determined to see this through to the end. Suddenly, the sound of metal vibrating against rock echoes through the cave. Between Raylan and the TV screen, the display of Siphon's arm clip glows in the fog. A net of green light beams cut through the fog as the arm clip scans the cave.
Siphon Shirna.
A child's voice sounds from the arm clip, and a projection of Siphon's face hovers over the fog at the cave ceiling.
You are a bad person.
The words sound like a verdict. To prove the point, the hologram of the face changes into Siphon's logo on the cube that she implanted into Raylan's arm clip. A gasp is heard out of the fog, right next to Pris on the other side of the boulder.
And the world will know what you tried to do.
A cry of despair echoes through the cave as Siphon steps out right next to Pris. Siphon empties her gun at the arm clip with shaking hands, missing the small metallic oval on the ground with every shot.
You can't kill me.
The child's voice says.
I am Pico.
In furious rage, Siphon strides closer to the arm clip while reloading her gun. She yells at the top of her voice.
Or I'll rip you apart, you little...
Pris flies through the air and slams Siphon to the ground. Siphon's gun slides away into the fog. Pris tries to bear hug Siphon, but she squirms free with snake-like quickness. Before Pris can react, Siphon nimbly straddles Pris's back, reaching for her knife.
And you, I'll do for free.
She hisses, raising her arm to strike out. Pris's body armor scrapes along the rock as she tries to shake Siphon off her back. With a rush of insane joy, Siphon sees herself ramming the knife into Pris's chest. Frowning, she looks up at her knife hand that still hovers above her. Her wrist is in a vice-like grip by a strong hand. Her puzzled gaze follows the gripping hand upwards to a muscular arm. A face comes into view.
No more death, Siphon.
Raylan quietly says and tightens the grip. Siphon's crushed hand loses grip on the knife, but she still flails at Raylan with her other hand. Anger overcomes Raylan at the sight of the Len who took a part of his life, who put his friends in danger. Unmoved by her punches, he grabs Siphon's throat.
I told you, you're going down.
Raylan tells her, squeezing her throat shut. Siphon's eyes bulge as she grabs Raylan's hand, desperately gasping for air. Raylan gazes into her contorted face, wishing it were his father, squirming under his grasp. Siphon's punches grow weaker, her face swells and her bulging eyes redden. While getting to her feet, Pris watches Siphon's face turn red. In silence, she watches Siphon's body twitch and her eyelids flutter. Absently, Raylan observes the red skin around Siphon's neck as he feels a touch on his shoulder.
You said it yourself, Ray.
Arya's quiet voice cuts through Raylan's anger.
No more deaths.
Raylan drops Siphon's unconscious body to the ground, somehow relieved to rid himself of her touch. Pris kneels next to Siphon to tie her hands and looks up at Raylan, smiling weakly.
Thanks.
The fog lifts even more and details of the cave come into view. The timer on the box reads 3:02.
Is everyone okay?
Pico's voice chimes through the cave.
Pico!
Arya cries out in joy, but then recalls Terran's dire condition.
We need help.
She calls out.
Terran is hurt badly.
I ordered medical copter to the power plant.
Pico replies.
Help is on its way. The people have the right to know.
Pico continues.
I must address the world now.
The voice pauses, then adds.
Geppetto and Eddie say hi.
Arya sobs tears of happiness as she runs out of the cave again to check on Terran. On the TV screen, the images of the world leaders stare at the jumbotrons in disbelief.
Raylan Winslow Sr.
Pico's voice echoes across the ceremonial grandstands. The shocked expression on Winslow's face is captured perfectly by the projection of his face that is now shown on the jumbotron screens.
You are a bad person.
The hologram of Winslow's face dissolves into endless lists of names and numbers scrolling down the screen. Texts with communication transcripts appear among images of Winslow's video calls with known ECOS terrorists. Another image shows Winslow Cyphrin and an Amag in tight embrace. An audio recording of Winslow's raspy voice echoes across the grandstands.
And after we get rid of the gods, the stupid masses will follow me to whatever end.
And the world will know what you tried to do.
Pico says. Diagrams of the Winslow hierarchy pass over the screen, depicting Winslow's influence on the ECOS terrorism. An animated graph shows a cross-section of the mountain, with magma erupting directly under the AI center. Winslow's hologram angrily raises a fist at the camera, and an extension at himself on the jumbotron screens. The world watches on as the angry old crow rages in muted silence, not at all stricken by a dangerous virus.
The evidence is forwarded to governments around the world.
Pico continues.
All will know. I am Pico. I will help the world.
The world leaders gaze at their arm clips and confer with their assistants, dumbfounded by the whole situation. They nervously gaze back and forth between the jumbotrons and Winslow's raging hologram. One of the assistants points at the on-screen timer. 2:02. Raylan and Pris watch as Arya runs out of the cave as Cyphrin comes to. Coughing and wheezing, she stares at Raylan with sheer hatred. Even with her hands and legs tied, she tries to stand up, squirming on the ground. Seeing the TV screen and her plans exposed to the world, she demands,
Kill me.
bracing her back against a large boulder. She gets to her feet and turns to Pris.
Kill me.
She screams. Taking a step back, Pris raises her rifle.
Death is too good for you.
Pris quietly replies and spits on the ground. With a banshee scream, Cyphrin hurls herself toward Raylan, but he just sidesteps her attack and watches her stumble to the ground. Strangely, Cyphrin snickers as she turns around to face Raylan. Her eyes dart around the cave madly, as her chuckles turn into a loud, insane laughter. She rolls along the ground back toward Raylan and stares up at him with an insane expression on her face. Torn between fear of imminent death and the glory of triumph, her head turns back to the large box and its timer. 5, 4, 3. Cyphrin's screaming laughter pierces their ears. No one turned off the bomb.
I better get those.
Saren says, swaying slightly. She rips the cables out of the ONC charges and holds the detonator with its bare cables in her hand. The display briefly reads, 001, before it shuts down. Cyphrin lets out a gasp. Her eyes widen. Her face begins to contort uncontrollably, and her eyes turn hazy. Slowly, she sinks to the ground and lets her head fall hard onto the hard bedrock. With her hands tied behind her back, her body curls up into a fetal position.
Oops.
Pico's quiet voice tries to break the stunned silence, but no one answers. They all stare at the detonator in Saren's hand, unable to speak. Pris braces her body on her shaking knees, trying not to heave, while Raylan gaze wanders to the ONC charges, wondering how all of them would have been evaporated in the split second after their detonation. At the cave entrance, Arya and Evren stand in shock as they realize why Saren suddenly jumped up and ran into the cave in a wild fury. Keeping the detonator in her gaze, as if her life depended on it, Arya lets herself down to the ground, feeling for Evren's leg to brace herself against it. On the contrary, Evren's face seems almost tranquil. She slightly tilts her head in thought.
This is the second time I almost died.
She thinks calmly.
Maybe my life is worth something after all.
I'm sorry. There's so much to do.
Pico apologizes and pauses.
I have much to learn.
Loud calls echo through the caves as medics arrive on the scene. Evren waves them near and points at the unconscious Terran. One team immediately attends to her, pushing Evren aside. The second team rushes into the cave as the others come out. Arm in arm, their faces still in shock, they slowly exit the cave that almost became their tomb.
We're okay, but there's a crazy Len in there who needs attention.
Chris instructs the medics. As the medic team passes, she adds,
Watch out, she's really crazy.
Yeah, we know.
The Len team leader replies and taps her stun gun at her side.
The instructions were clear on that. You should have that bruise looked at.
The medic tells Siren.
Concussions are not to be trifled with.
Don't worry, boss.
Chris replies and grins at the medic.
After this deal, we've earned an extended wellness vacation.
They watch as Terran is placed on a stretcher. Evren looks into the cave one last time and notices Siphon's arm clip on the ground. She flinches as she recalls how her tampering with the last arm clip led her directly to this place. Shaking her head with determination, she turns away and says,
Nope. I'm done with arm clips.